Hey gang, it's Brody from Brody's Garage. Today is May 17th. This is episode 35. And we're talking about my 1967 Nova build here. And well, I've got a lot done over the past week. Let's talk about it. Exciting things going on here under the hood. There's the hood. These are a couple of Precision 6266 mirror image turbos. Mirror image because one goes that way, the other one goes the opposite direction. I just could not stand not having the symmetry, so I spent the extra dough, got the two turbos, and I'm happy to say that after a lot of finagling, a lot of trimming, and boy, just a lot of heartache, these things are sitting in there, and they're pretty much where they're gonna live. I am ramping up towards the home stretch of getting this thing fired up. My goal is to get this thing started within a week, 2 weeks at the most, but I'm trying for a week from now. What do I have left to do? Well, I got the turbos in place. I'm just waiting to sort of tighten up all the clamps and all the hardware and all that stuff, but it is, for the most part, in place. My wiring harness is in place, coils, fuel system is pretty much ready to put gas in and give it a go. I got my battery mounted. I've got my starter cable wired up to the starter, and I even ran the alternator charging cable to the starter post, only to realize after doing what I think is a pretty fantastic job of doing a nice clean wiring with loom and heat shrink and all that stuff, that I forgot to put this in there. This little junction box I think actually has a fuse in it, and it goes in line with that cable. And I think what I wanted to do was maybe put this up on the firewall somewhere, have the alternator go to one side of it, and then continue down to the starter, and then I would use this other post, the hot side, to power my fuse box inside the car. So now I gotta decide what I'm gonna do. Am I gonna pull that whole mess out and redo it? Can I find a way to salvage maybe part of it? I don't know, but this is just the story of my life. Just one little victory followed by a, oh, okay. I still have to come up with my downpipes, and this might be my biggest challenge for this vehicle, because really the only place that I can take it from here is gonna be back here and out through the inner fender panel behind the front tire. Problem is, I got some pretty big meats up here, and the breather canister back there obviously is an oversight that's probably going to have to be relocated somewhere else, because probably the only place that I can bring the exhaust down is right back here, because once you crank this tire all the way inside, you crank it one way or the other, the tire comes pretty close to back here. So there's a very narrow margin. In fact, to be on the safe side, I ordered some round to oval transitions and some 3.5 inch, or what is it, 3 by 4.5 inch oval tubing to maybe snake it down here and then bring it back across. So that's sort of my backup plan in case the round tubing doesn't work out, but I'm thinking I may have to go that direction. Otherwise, a big win today was I got my QA1 carbon fiber drive shaft, and I'm going to tell you all about that right now. Okay, we are here underneath the car with the brand new QA1 carbon fiber drive shaft installed. As you can see, it's got kind of a bluish hue to it, which I think it's kind of growing on me. Yeah, a lot I've learned since I've had this installed. First of all, the quality looks great. One thing I will say is it's hanging out of the transmission output housing just a little bit further than I would have liked. I was aiming for a 1 inch snout here, and I think we got maybe, a little bit more than that, 1.25 inches. Don't know that that's a huge problem. If it is, I don't know that I can rectify it. But I'm also looking at the driveline angles here. I've been playing around with this. I took the cross member out because my TCI cross member that I modified is no longer going to work unless I remodify it. It is, it's not low enough. So anyhow, because I had modified it thinking that I was going to have the transmission much further up, I've already welded it in place, and it's too high, so I'm gonna have to redo it. I might just make a brand new cross member out of, you know, square tubing and have it come straight over, angle down underneath the mount, and then back up. I also want to leave myself as much room for exhaust clearance possible. But getting back to the drive shaft, looking at the angles, we have a transmission output angle of 3.1 degrees, and give or take. I can put this on there 10 times and I'll get 10 different readings. But I've decided on an average of about 3 degrees. So if this is coming downhill at 3 degrees, and then my drive shaft is sitting almost level, so it is almost perfectly level, and I've checked it on the shaft and at the yokes. So the drive shaft is level, the transmission's coming down at 3 degrees, so I have a working angle or operating angle of 3 degrees between this yoke and that yoke. So right, 3 degrees going that way. So to offset at the back, I have to have a downward angle of 3 degrees. So that means my pinion has to be pointing upwards at a positive 3 degrees. I'm not crazy about the positive 3 degree angle, but I don't know that I have a choice in the matter. And I don't have a really good place to grab onto this to measure. If the drive shaft was out, I would use the machined edge of the front of the yoke here, but I don't. So I'm using the fabricated metal housing here, and I get a 87.1, about an average of that, which, as you know, from 90 degrees straight up, that tilt is offset by 3 degrees. So 87 degrees means it's tilted at 3 degrees upward. Okay, yeah, 87.2, 87.1. So yeah, there you go. There's my 3 degrees right there. So I got the angles correct, and the pan is actually sitting more level than it was before with the modified trans cross members. So I'm actually happier about this. Also in doing this, by bringing the transmission rear back down, it raises the front of the engine up, which is going to give me more clearance to my radiator. That was a problem before. So that's a win. The pan being more level is a win. Also, by bringing the rear of the transmission down a bit, I gain more clearance here with the drive shaft. With it up, it was almost touching at the top there. So this is good. I've got room here. Everything is good. The only thing I got to do now is I got to grind some more material off the 9-inch third member ribs here. As you recall, I already ground some of it off. You can see there where it's been ground down to get this bar here. This is the only one. It's fine on the other side because we don't have the ribs on the other side. But because of the ring gear, we had the ribs here. And I got to grind that down further there and there. So, God, I hope that this thing doesn't affect the strength of the third member, but I got to do it. So I'm going to have to pull this bar back off and grind another, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or so off there. But the angles are good. The one thing I will say, and I noticed this up front, is that the whole drivetrain is sitting over towards the driver's side, maybe 3/8 of an inch. If you can see there, this is not centered within the tunnel, it's over this way. And it was the same case up front, which is why I had to heat and bend some of that downward strut from the front end to gain clearance for my turbo clamp on the driver's side. So I'm gonna get this all working. There's enough room certainly to take it around the block, but when the engine comes out, I think I'm going to refabricate my engine mounts to push it over towards the passenger side just a little bit. You can see the difference here where that's sitting. So anyway, it's in there. I don't know if this is a problem. I'm gonna call Jake's about it and ask them. I'll get the exact measurement here, but I think we're looking at 1.25 inches. And there you go. Drive shaft is in place, and let's move on. Okay, so some of the remaining items are the cooling system. I've got my radiator over here on the core supports, and it's looking pretty good, but one thing I'm pretty sure of is the top radiator hose here. At the very least, I've got to weld on the nipple. I got to weld that nipple back on at an angle to get underneath my cold air pipes, or I picked up a set of weld-in bungs that will allow me to attach a 16AN hose and fitting to there, and I can either take it where it is right now, or I can block this off and take it off the side. I'm just not sure until I get the thing back in and get it installed to see which direction the hose needs to go, but I ordered both a 16AN and a 20AN bung, and I will use whichever one works. It's probably going to be the 16AN. So I've got radiator hoses to make, cooling system finishing up. Once that's all done, I'm going to pressure test it, do a vacuum fill so I get all the air out of the system. Fuel system, obviously, once I get it with gas in it and run the pump, I can test for leaks. Brake lines, I started on my brake lines, and I'm going to flip the camera around to show you. Okay, sorry for the poor lighting. From the Willwood caliper, we've got a 1/8" pipe thread, 90 degree, that converts to, I think it's a 3AN brake line. So we got a flex line that goes up and over to a mounting tab on the chassis. Now, this fitting would not, it would go through there, but the groove inside the fitting would not clear enough to put the C-clip on there to retain it. So what did I do? I took the fitting over to my bench vise, I clamped it inside of my cordless drill, and then I just used it as sort of a lathe, and I ground out the groove a little bit wider. And then I put just a regular old C-clip on there, which I think actually looks a little cooler anyway. So that's there. I just got to run the hard lines over across the cross member, tee off the driver's side one, and then up to the master cylinder. And then I've got to run a line to the back brakes. Okay, so there's the rear brake lines, and I've just sort of got those tabs mocked up right now with some magnets before I weld them in. And then I will have to do a T-split off this as well. But yeah, once I get the brake lines completely run, I'm gonna do a complete, hydraulic system flush, get all the air to those. Speaking of the brakes, let's talk about what happened last week. Now that it's time for a little lesson in humility and safety. Today I was making this metal bracket here, which I designed to offset my throttle arm here. The reason for that is because in the previous episode, as I mentioned, the cable was coming out right behind the valve cover, so I needed to move the exit point over, well, about that far, onto the firewall. To do that, I had to come up with a way to offset the cable mount. So this is what I came up with. I found a piece of scrap metal that I had laying around, and I fabricated this, and everything was going pretty well until I started cutting it off with the wheel, and I got to the very end, and the cutoff wheel slipped, and I did not have the guard on the back of the cutoff wheel, and probably didn't have a good grip on it because I had the other handle detached. So the cutoff wheel slipped, went through my jeans, brand new pair of Amazon $35 jeans, mind you, and went right into my leg, and this is what it looked like. So I had to stop what I was doing, immediately go inside, clean up, and then go to the ER and have 20 stitches put in my leg. So this is a lesson to all of you, and mostly to myself. Stop cutting corners. Do the safety thing. It takes an extra minute to get the gloves on, to put the eyeglasses on, to not change the blade on the grinding wheel with it plugged in. Stupid stuff like this. I'm gonna have a scar for life now. Well, 4 scars actually for life because of a stupid mistake. I'm lucky it wasn't worse. This could have happened 100 times over. I've been careless. So back to work, do it the right way. And so, I don't know, within a week or so, this thing should be running. I mean, if nothing else, the engine should be fired up. But now that I got the drive shaft connected, if I finish up my brake lines, there's really no reason I can't take this thing for a little spin around the block. So I'm gonna leave you all right there and go inside and clean up a filthy mess right now. But please, if you haven't done so, subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate that. Tell your friends, and I will see you on the next episode, my friends. Take care.